The last few weeks on this channel has been full of mind stuff, right? Like, incredible topics. And it's very, very easy for the mind to react and be overwhelmed with all of this information. Like, oh no, like Herculubus is coming, or what am I gonna do? It's the age of Aquarius, the future of humanity. Like, the Hermetic seal. I got to do alchemy. Oh, like the Christ is inside of us all, and I can incarnate that. Like, what? Like, how am I ever gonna do that? I think Jean's right. I better kill my ego then. But how am I gonna do that as well? And I gotta figure this feeling out of the Divine Mother and pray to my inner being and right? So I hope you get my point about this challenge of all of this mind stuff when we're studying spiritual teachings. The problem is not the teachings in themselves. The problem is how our intellect reacts to it all, completely getting in the way of perceiving the deeper truth behind concepts, like a massive boulder in front of the sun, blocking all the light. And written on that boulder is all of our remembered spiritual concepts, ideas, techniques that we feel we need and are attached to, but we don't need it, not in practice. We have to learn to see reality directly, and not through the filter of concepts and intellectual ideas which simply block and obscure the light of reality. And so, when it comes to practice, we have to just learn to let it all go. I'm sure you've heard of the Zen koan, where a Japanese master welcomes a university professor who came to inquire about Zen. The master served the professor some tea, and he kept pouring the tea into the professor's cup until it was full and overflowing. The professor watched until he couldn't restrain himself anymore, saying, "It is overfull, no more will go in." And the master said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" So this is what we need to experience the great absolute emptiness or sunyata within ourselves, if we really want to take this path of spiritual learning. But that doesn't mean to be mindless or forgetful. We just take what is useful for practice and discard the rest. And what is useful, we don't keep it in the intellect. We practice it. We bathe in it. Like how a great ancient philosopher contemplates the world. He penetrates ideas deeply to help comprehend them and extract the truth in a profound way through profound meditation. So, if we want to exit all of this mind nonsense that we may have and come to a much deeper way of assimilating knowledge, we need to learn meditation, profound and deep meditation. And that's what we'll look at here. 10 tips or rules or principles that are crucial towards gaining better skill or efficiency or refinement in this understanding of what meditation really is. And let me tell you, many people ask how to meditate, and it is a very good question, of course, but rarely do we see the question, how do I make sure I meditate every day? You see, we could sit here for hours talking about the technicalities of how to meditate, but we will really only ever learn how to meditate deeply when we commit to the upright effort of practicing daily. Consistency is the key. Meditation is not about one sitting. It is about sitting in life itself. We'll contemplate this more deeply as we continue. And so, what is the purpose of all this? What are we generating through consistent practice? Well, firstly, we are not generating anything that comes from the mind. This is something we have to understand. We are instead generating a connection with the being. The being is something beyond the intellect, beyond the emotions, beyond sexuality, beyond mind, beyond it all. In the Kabbalion, it says, all is mind. Yes, all is mind, but in profound meditation, we learn to go beyond all mind. Okay, so in practical terms, perhaps we can understand this better when we ask ourselves, what is the opposite of being? And we could say the opposite of being is doing, thinking, analyzing, doubt, fear, depression, desire. It is the I, the me, the pluralized ego of the psyche. All of these things which are of the mind. So this thing, this aspect of ourselves, of our mind, of our intellect that thinks, all the thoughts that we have is not us. It is not the real self. It is just mind stuff. The innermost being is not the mind. The being is the being. It is Atman. It is totally indescribable and inexpressible. Because once you try to describe this, the being, it simply becomes mind through the intellectual vocabulary of language. And so we can start to form a connection with our being through meditation and learning to be aware of our awareness and eliminating from our awareness those elements that do not serve the being. This can be described as psychological death. And with this understanding, we can reflect on how in teachings it says that the Kundalini, the serpent Kundalini, swallows us up. Think about that. To allow the Kundalini, something greater than the mind, to swallow us up, to transform us. This means total surrender, complete submission of the mind to the being. This is why you can't worship the Christ without worshipping the Divine Mother Kundalini first, because she is the one who swallows us up and gives birth to the Christ on the other end of death. She makes the Christ. If you struggle to understand this, you can think that in a psychological sense, she helps us with our subconsciousness, destroying the defects found there. But it's a little distasteful to call our Divine Mother, this very powerful and profound part of our being, subconsciousness or something, because really she is far more than that. We wouldn't call our physical mother some subconscious means to an end, would we? So, when you really meet her in the astral, it's something far more profound and beautiful. Now, we are going to get into these 10 rules for meditation, but just before I do, I want to clarify further about the intellect and the mind, and really reinforce this understanding, this intellectual, psychological understanding that the intellect is not the mind. It is one part of the mind. But the reason many feel it to just be the intellect, that many people will think that, the mind is just the same as intellect, is because we, humanity today, are so predominantly based in the intellect. And we have put the mind in the intellect. So, in order to begin experiencing true liberation, it's not just a case of liberating the intellect, but of balancing and equilibrating different parts of the mind too, not just the intellect. We have to experience a sort of healing within our different centers. Only then, when the mind is in less conflict with itself, with its different parts of itself, such as its emotions, its sexual center, its instinctual center and motor instinctive center, everything, only then is it easier to begin liberating the mind itself from all levels of conditioning and then start to really experience the being. But as long as the mind is in a lot of inner conflict, well, the mind is just like a worn out plane. unable to even fly. And when we learn to stop trying to use and abuse it all the time, trying to force it to work, it will just heal and balance itself naturally. And we do this by taking refuge in the being, in the power of the being, which is our source of our spiritual energy. And all we have to do is learn how to just get off our plane so it can restore itself, so that we can send it to maintenance and all the engines can be fixed and everything. And then, when we eventually come back to our mind, feeling very replenished in the being, when we start to learn to use this plane again, our plane vehicle that we live in, this tool, it becomes far more efficient and intelligent. In this way, hopefully you can understand the meaning that the most intelligent and efficient form of thinking is non-thinking. So, all of the practices on this channel, along with the many resources shared on it, all of them, alchemy, transmutation, death of ego, chakras, astral projection, all of them is for this purpose, for you to experience the great union with your innermost being in deeper and deeper levels of self-realization as you advance on your path. The purpose of meditation is not to experience the mind. No, it is for the being. And any profound realization or enlightenment you may receive on the way is not anything that we can ever take credit for, because as soon as we do, we've missed the mark. I understand this is perhaps difficult for many of us to comprehend, and what's more challenging is that this can only be understood in practice here and now. The more we put words on it and try in vain, like I am now trying to describe it, the more we take away real meaning from it. Because the being just is. It is what is. It is the isness. Existence itself in this moment. And what more do we want as a description? Just look around you. It is the power of now, the power of divinity as the being, the monad, the I am presence, but nothing to do with the I as ego, nothing to do with that. It is thou art the being. And we as children simply have to do thy will of the being to come to know it in experience. And as we do, we receive energy, protection, and guidance more and more on our path. Now, of course, I'm just throwing mere words at you, but all of that is not the being either. As Master Samael said, the conception we have of the being is not the being. Any intellectual concept we have created about the being is also not the being. Our opinion of the being is not the being. The being is the being, and the reason for the being to be is to be itself. So, let's look at these 10 fundamental rules for meditation. And truly, without applying these rules, being able to be liberated from the shackles of the mind becomes terribly difficult. So let's begin. The first rule is, become totally aware of your psychological mood. This simply means be aware of your emotions. Because if we want to experience samadhi, which is a form of intelligent ecstasy and bliss in meditation, then we must first introspect deeply on ourselves and what is happening within the inner atmosphere of one's own inner world and how we feel emotionally. Many people who meditate at best only ever see their thoughts without giving focus to how those thoughts are making them feel. And also to comprehend how every thought, mental form, or image is preceded or caused by the duality of emotions in our life. The pendulum of emotions such as pain or pleasure, happiness or sadness, like or dislike, We have to reflect in daily life how our emotional state determines specific repeated thoughts and thought patterns that we have in the screen of the mind, and creates these repeated psychological songs within ourselves. For example, every time we are happy, perhaps we begin to fantasize about certain nice things. And when we are sad, we begin to have thoughts related to losing hope in life and feeling very depressed, etc. If this is difficult to understand, the little practice that helped me in the beginning of my own path was making sure I asked myself about 7 times a day, how am I feeling? And just don't reply to yourself. Don't label anything, any emotions. Just breathe and feel it out. Sense the emotions within you and any thoughts related to those emotions. Sometimes the emotions felt caused certain thoughts, or sometimes the thoughts are reacting to positive or negative emotions. Okay, so remember, we're not looking to be happy in meditation, but instead to achieve serenity, tranquility, peace, calm, stillness of the mind. That's a much different state to feeling happy. Happiness is just a surface level, temporary emotion. And actually, happiness without the foundation of serenity is very unstable because it's part of this pendulum of emotions. But also remember that serenity or samadhi is just one aspect of meditation. And so the second rule is serene reflection. This means to investigate the origin of every thought and emotion. So once there is awareness of one's own inner mood and atmosphere, detached from it all, just watching our inner world calmly as if it's on a movie theater screen, we investigate and examine, or at least estimate, about the origin, causes, or reasons behind every thought we are seeing in the screen of the mind. This is to become our own psychologist, to self-inquire in an intuitive way the motive behind each thought. Why is it really there? Every desire we feel, every image that we see, inquiring into the question of, for what reason have these forms entered my inner space? This is important to comprehend because are we just going around in life and just letting any thought or emotion come inside without knowing the reason as to why it is there in the first place? If everyone had this ability to have the choice about what kind of thoughts and emotions they had, we would obviously have very little people on the planet with depression, anxiety, anger, etc., etc. Because if we saw these thoughts and emotions coming in the first place and comprehended them, we would, of course, not allow them into our inner world. Now, of course, it's very easy to become over-analytical with this and start getting caught up in thinking. Well, this is where the other rules in this list start helping us. And in reality, it is actually a very intuitive practice. The third rule is serene observation. Okay, the second rule was serene reflection, meaning to reflect and scrutinize a little about our thoughts and emotions and comprehend them. But now we are just talking about serene reflection. And this is very simple, but also very powerful. It means to just serenely observe the mind, to be in observation. Simply placing perfect attention on all mental forms that appear on the screen of the mind. Your awareness should just perceive any and all things in an equal manner. I say this in a repetitive way because you can give this instruction to anyone, but they'll always come back to you with a question of, how do I overcome this thought? What about this thought? I just can't get over this emotion. No, simply just observe. Be firm in your practice to observe. This aspect isn't about scrutinizing anything here. We are simply letting our awareness be a calm and still flame and illuminate anything that appears in our perception. If we see images, hear sounds, we just give equal, serene attention to it all. We are not isolating our concentration on any one thought, but simply allowing the light of awareness to shine in all directions, in all dark corners of the mind. This should be, and it is, effortless. It is not a doing. Because as soon as we think we are doing something, like we have to make effort to do it, taking action in meditation, then we get lost in the inner movements of the mind instead of just observing the mind. It is pure observation. This is very powerful, and you can come to deep and profound states of meditation with this if you understand this principle in practice. This is really the most powerful technique in meditation in order to acquire perfect concentration. All of the techniques out there, whether it's visualization, chanting mantras, or if it involves moving the body or something like that, would be relatively shallow without deep understanding of this aspect. To have no preferences in our awareness, no distinction between perceived phenomena, to just have non-reactionary, non-judgmental, totally impartial, neutral awareness of all phenomena that arises in the mind. This is called non-exclusive meditation, and it's very powerful because if one is doing very specific visualization or only focusing on the breath or chanting mantras, their concentration is then isolated. It is exclusive to only focusing on that one thing. For example, if you see on the screen, to exclusively concentrate on one thing is the same as our awareness focusing in one line, like a laser pointing forwards. However, if that is the only basis or foundation of our meditation, it is not a very deep form of meditation. Imagine instead if a laser could shine out in all directions in 360 degrees. That's what we want. Then, if you chant mantras, you won't lose yourself too much in the mantras or let other thoughts intrude while trying to concentrate on the mantra. So I hope you can see how non-exclusive meditation is the foundation to perfect concentration practice. And so what happens when we train our awareness in this way, simply watching all phenomena in the mind with pure awareness, allowing everything to be as it is? Well, the mind may be noisy, yes, but if you are patient, the mind will exhaust itself. This is exactly the same as if our mind was a muddy glass of water. When we come to meditation, the glass is full of dirt because it has been agitated. It has not been serene during the day. It is simply just morbid, full of filthy, unconscious thoughts and emotions. And then, when we use this kind of non-exclusive meditation, this concentration, we simply sit in our being with pure awareness, pure consciousness, waiting patiently for all the perceptions in the mind to pass. And eventually, all of the dirt in the glass will fall to the bottom, and clear water will begin to appear. All the dirt that was previously swimming around simply just got tired and exhausted and fell. This is why it is said, meditation allows us to see reality, because we may have thought we were seeing reality with our muddy perception before, but we were not. Only once the mind has stopped being agitated, excited, full of negative and positive emotions all of the time, only then will the mud fall in stillness, in neutrality, and then the clear light of consciousness can penetrate the mind and the light of reality comes shining through much more clearly, and that big boulder shatters to dust. Now, of course, this is far more transcendental when experienced compared to this shoddy intellectual description. And when you do experience this for yourself in an advanced way, you will have just a small taste of liberation from the mind. And it is so sweet and relieving that you will be motivated to keep up with your practice, because it's something that you just cannot get from anywhere in the external world. And eventually you will not care for how long you are meditating for at all. You will simply just see and be, and it will be very easy to meditate it for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, etc. Accelerating your awakening towards your being more and more. It is literally like dynamite, this powerful but simple technique for concentration. The fourth rule of meditation is, in every moment in your daily life, hold a sense of contemplation. This means to always be serenely contemplating things in life, which, yes, can be applied to the outer world, but more importantly, to the happenings of the inner mind, the inner worlds, to be genuinely curious and watchful of what kind of things are happening within our inner space. And this sense of contemplation is something we also have to develop when we are not in formal practices of meditation, but simply wherever we are and whatever we're doing in every moment of our life, whether we're at work, walking in a park, talking to many people, etc. This helps us to not get lost in our life. It helps us to remember ourselves and our consistent practice. This is how we begin to also develop a universal mind, and how we begin to see spiritual truth in all aspects of life, and how we understand how our personal life itself is part of our spiritual path. And we begin to understand what our particular individual role in our school of life is, and how all the events in our life up to now all make sense when we comprehend and contemplate why we are here, where we are right now, according to the divine timing of our particular life. And with that particular understanding of our individual progress comes great and deep acceptance of where we are, and we learn to simply tread our path step by step with a lot more joy and a lot more insight as to how to take the next steps in our progress. This is just one benefit of becoming a more contemplative person in life. And how we understand spirituality is universal and applies to everything. So without this rule, we could just become one of those people who think that spirituality is just something separate to everything else in life. But it's not. Spiritual universal truth permeates everything, even in the most superficial or dark places or situations. The fifth rule of meditation is, assume a receptive psychological state. This means that the intellect must feel itself to be receptive. Think about what that means. Think about when you meet people in the world and everyone is not really receptive or aware of the things around them or what you are saying to them. Their mind is not passively receptive because it is preoccupied with too much mind stuff. It has to instead be passive, receptive, perceptive. So our mind, whether in formal meditation or not, should always be like a still and serene lake. When we throw rocks all the time, or in other words, we throw thoughts into the lake, bubbles rise up and disturb the lake, causing ripples and inner turbulence, causing us to not see or perceive very clearly. Our aim in practice should be perfect stillness of the inner lake, so that it may reflect to us a perfect understanding of reality in return. The sixth rule of meditation is continuity of purpose. This means to develop, to hold a sense of, or integrate tenacity, diligence, firmness and consistency in meditation and our spiritual practices in general. We need the sense or force of willpower to not think about practice, but to actually do it, to perform it, to become 100% practical. This is so important because if we are fickle, indecisive, not sure about meditation, or having thoughts like, why am I doing this? What's the point? This is boring. I'm just going to go and eat a pizza and watch some Netflix or something, then we are lacking firmness. And don't confuse firmness with forcing oneself to do meditation. We should never force ourselves. We should just be firm after we've decided what to do. This simply means to deeply contemplate and realize why we are walking this path, and remember the choices as to why we made the decision in the first place. It means to find your own particular reasons as to why you are practicing meditation, and just simply comprehend those reasons and remember them, and then just take the firm decision to do it and stick with it, because this impulse is coming from our conscience, our being, right? And if we don't follow it, well, it will lead to unhappiness, obviously. And so without this sense of continuity of purpose, it is impossible to achieve states, these higher and deeper states that we've been exploring of serenity, ecstasy, samadhi, satori, because we have not yet learned upright reasoning to just fully let go of the mind. We're still hanging on to it just a little bit because of our fickleness and lack of decision. It's like we are just in a bit of an experimental phase of our meditation practice, and that's fine. If that's where you're at, okay. But know that the time will come for you to make a deeper decision, a deeper commitment to your inner self, to merge more profoundly with your innermost being. The seventh rule of meditation is attend group meditations. Ideally, if you have a Gnostic school or Lumicial near you, go and visit it. See if you resonate with the people. If you do, and everything is positive, it will help tenfold. And of course, if not, group meditations can still help a lot. In places like Buddhist centers, they usually host things like that. But just keep in mind, of course, meditation should primarily always be practiced alone, in solitude, in your own privacy and energy, and at your own pace. But every now and then, if you can find a group of like-minded people to encourage and help each other in a positive way, it is helpful, especially in the beginning too. But we should also go about this wisely, not just joining any old random meditation groups, because we might not get on with the people, they might be quite misinformed, or their forms of meditation might just simply be very shallow or just strange. Maybe they just do like laughing meditations, which is just not meditation at all. That's just laughing, right? Everyone can laugh whenever they want. You might as well just go to a party for that. And also in groups as well, one of the most destructive things is that if the person leading the group is not so conscious, and or if one member in the group is always being very negative or pessimistic and cynical, then that energy can infect the energy of the group. If the person leading can guide that person successfully, then of course that kind of situation can be remedied. But if not, then, well, we don't need to stay in that group if someone is just provoking destructive, egotistical patterns or behaviors in other people and in the group as a whole. But the main thing for this rule is that the people in the group should have an affinity of thoughts, intentions, and values, especially in terms of how to meditate and what they seek to achieve spiritually. We can say that a group should have an affinity of chitta, which means affinity of thoughts, emotions, and spiritual aim. And through a group, we can learn the magic of bodhicitta, bodhi, which means enlightenment or wisdom, And together, a group can charge themselves by this sense of bodhicitta, this wish for the positive spiritual direction of each other's energies to be blessed by higher forces from the superior worlds. Remember, we can also understand bodhicitta as Christ centrism, and also recall that Jesus the Christ said, "Where there are 2 or 3 or more gathered in my name, I am there among them." So this means when we practice with others in the name of compassion for others and all beings in general, instead of just for ourselves, then we are exposed to higher laws of the being that strengthen our practice in every way. This means we don't just go to a group expecting to consume energy, but that we go with the highest intentions to help others, to be selfless as we can be, and that every member in the group shines whatever light they have outwardly from within, so that the whole group energizes each other in a selfless way, and through this the group becomes a giant sun in the process, instead of just being individual small candle flames which are usually just concerned about themselves. The 8th rule of meditation is become intensely vigilant of your own mind. This includes, but isn't limited to, all strenuous activities or agitating exercises or whatever we have to do during daily life, such as when we're at work, doing chores around the house, etc. No matter what we're doing, whether in meditation or not, we must be vigilant from moment to moment of our own mind, like a lighthouse tower shining in all directions, always watching closely for what kind of thoughts are coming and going. This means to always be highly alert and vigilant, like a watchman in the time of war. I was observing my cats earlier, and if you've ever seen a cat looking intensely with wide eyes at a group of birds, that's the type of wakefulness and alertness that we want in our mind, to always be ready and seeing and perceiving every movement, energetic, psychological, emotional, sexual, any movement that happens within, perceiving it from moment to moment. Just watch, watch, watch. Observe, observe, observe. You never know when a destructive thought or emotion could lead you astray. The 9th rule of meditation is avoid external sense perceptions. This means we should meditate with the eyes closed, and that we must also eliminate any perceptions to do with distracting external senses. So if you're trying to meditate but you feel uncomfortable, then get more comfortable first. Maybe some tight clothes are distracting you, wear something more comfortable. Perhaps there are loud sounds outside, close your window. Now, this is a bit of a razor's edge because, yes, in the beginning, we need to eliminate these things and make a comfortable and encouraging meditative environment for ourselves. The problem is the mind itself always wants more and is never satisfied. So be careful with this particular rule. The superior way to handle this is by total detachment of the mind's preferences or compulsion to be distracted. A good and strong meditator can meditate anywhere, whether it's in a busy office wearing a suit, whether it's in the middle of a crowd in a busy city, or perhaps in a prison where there is lots of suffering. Whatever. These are all good places to meditate for the advanced type of practitioner. So we eliminate these attachments to sense perceptions. We eliminate these annoyances, these mental irritations, simply by observing them and not identifying with them. And you will see, with patience, the mind will tire itself out and you can enter a much more deeper state of meditation anywhere, no matter where you are. And eventually, you will not be so bothered about what position your physical body is in, or about what kind of physical sensation you achieve, or how you feel, or you'll find yourself just being able to smile even when your family is having a big argument in the other room, right? So instead, you will experience true detachment, and through that, being strong in that practice, you will understand what it feels like to be absorbed fully into the inner senses of the consciousness through total letting go of the attachments to the physical, external sense perceptions of the world. It is even said that some of the best meditators are able to maintain strong and serene meditation even if they have hot coals on their legs. So you can reflect on that in terms of this attachment to the physical senses. And with this knowledge, we also have to understand that guided meditations are just not very deep meditations, because as long as you're listening to something external through the physical senses, then inner concentration is lacking. Of course, in the beginning, guided meditations are fine. They can help us a little bit. And the same if you listen to music while you're meditating. Okay, fine. But understand that it will not lead you to the type of profound meditative states that we are talking about here. Eventually, you must go beyond relying on the external senses for a sense of peace. And as long as we do that through the external world, it will only ever be an artificial and mechanical sense of peace. But when we're ready for it, we can take the plunge into the inner space of the innermost being and experience something much more transcendental with lasting transformative effects as well, if we are able to finally just let go of these addictions or compulsions to physical sensations, whether they are of sight, of seeing or hearing or feeling, etc. And the 10th rule of meditation is absolute relaxation of the entire body, and the wise combination of meditation and sleep. So this means that all the muscles in the physical body should not be tense, that we dedicate some time before meditation, before any of the more formal concentration practices, to just bring awareness to the body and its muscles and any tensions, and maintain this throughout the practice. We can reflect on the importance of this in how there exists physical tensions that may arise when certain thoughts appear in the mind too. So there are these psychophysiological tensions that we can reflect on. So we can go a little deeper with this by observing if any tensions in the body are actually caused by the energy of certain thoughts or emotions as well. In this way, we can comprehend our emotions much more intimately, feeling the body's reaction to thoughts. A common one is that we may feel our eyes or eyebrows or our forehead frown if we feel agitated or frustrated with certain thoughts that we are consciously or unconsciously perceiving. Well, in those moments, try relaxing those muscles instead. See what happens. Let the body smile a little bit, right? Relax. In this way, we can see how physical and mental relaxation relate to one another. So profound relaxation is really important. As said at the beginning of this video, we can easily get so stressed out about many different deep and urgent topics, especially in the Gnostic studies. And if we're not careful, it can produce this sort of Gnostic stress, right? And this we must obviously observe and comprehend and transcend psychologically if we want to progress in these practices. And practice in this rule of deep and profound relaxation of the physical body can also teach us how to welcome the feeling of drowsiness in meditation. Usually in the beginning, we often resist the sensations of sleepiness or drowsiness, but actually it is a very powerful tool, and it can be quite a sweet sensation to allow into our practice. We just need to be detached from it. Meditation in some traditions is also called conscious sleep. That's something you can reflect on in practice. Because when you allow the body to be a little bit drowsy and go consciously into that, in combination with all of these very deep states that we've been seeing in this video, you will begin to perceive phenomena from deeper aspects of your subconsciousness in the midst of whatever samadhi or ecstasy or deep state of meditation that you're in. You will begin to see dream-like images, symbols, and scenes. This is not that much different from what happens when we sleep at night. All you have to do here is simply continue in your meditation. I get questions like this all the time. Gene, I'm seeing all of these images. What do they mean? Simply just continue meditation. You must stay in practice, observing and letting the mind exhaust itself while you simply sit and be. Because if you get caught up in being fascinated with certain scenes and thoughts, or get identified with things you perceive from the subconscious mind, and you begin to follow their trail of energy, then you are losing the meditation practice. Simply continue. Do not be tempted by what you see. Have perfect, non-exclusive concentration with firmness and continuity of purpose. Do not forget yourself. Be a watchman in the time of war. Be a lighthouse that sees all without preference, not falling unconsciously to sleep, but intuitively and instinctively learning how to provoke and regulate drowsiness at will. And then with progress in this practice, this type of cultivated awareness will be very useful for dream yoga and astral projection practices, since you would have then developed a formidable part of your awareness that is not easily drawn in by the sensation of sleep and dreamy images that fascinate the mind and intellect. You will naturally begin to have astral experiences during sleep. I think this is perhaps the best explanation on this channel as to how we can just start naturally having astral experiences, spontaneously, even without intention. Not through any particular astral projection method or technique, but simply let it be a byproduct of our cultivated awareness in our meditation practices. So, those are the 10 rules here. Now, these rules you could think of as steps, but not really. In an advanced meditator, he or she is just able to integrate all 10 rules at the same time. Not by thinking about it, this just becomes their new state or way of being that naturally occurs through years of perseverance. And I would say that this is especially developed with Rule 3, to learn this non-exclusive type of concentration. You can re-listen to it if you want. I'll put timestamps in the description. And so, since most of us are beginners here, you can just practice any of these in your own order, according to what you feel in your own being, that you need, that would help you the most for now, and simply just strive towards integrating the rest as you grow in awareness. For other people, it might just be a case of, perhaps screenshotting this list that you see on the screen and just go about your practices contemplating as to whether you are or not integrating these principles. And surely enough, as you grow in your own awareness with upright efforts daily, you will begin to naturally comprehend these rules and principles in higher and higher octaves in your own understanding. And I hope you can see how important it is to develop these rules if we want practical knowledge, and how they are crucial components or foundational keys to begin to receive gnosis, self-knowledge, to know thyself in a clear and intimate way. These 10 principles completely open up the doors to perception into understanding how to receive self-knowledge in a direct way. Only when the mind is quiet and in inner silence, and we are in serene observation, only then can newness emerge, newness of insight, perceptions, experiences, thoughts, feelings, etc. This is radically transformative. And otherwise, if not, well, the mind just stays bottled up in its own conditioning, in its own sort of repetitive feedback of its own dreams and thoughts and emotions that it doesn't even really understand. But if we integrate these principles, we can begin to experience the true liberation of our bottled up essence, our bottled up conditioned consciousness, and we develop what we call in the Gnostic studies a permanent center of gravity, or one could say a permanent state of pure awareness, sitting firmly within the center of that awareness, not easily distracted by the many winds of life, not distracted by the many intellectual waves of mental dualism, not distracted by the gravitational forces of egotistical energies or by magnetic attractions or repulsions of the sense perceptions, but instead we perceive all of the things in life clearly, and any egoic attachments that we may project onto them dissolve firmly in the pure light of perfect meditation. So, friends, I hope this was helpful. May you all reach the absolute light, the realization of reality itself, not through some one technique or through a few days of meditation, but through daily perseverance and conscious efforts throughout the course of your life, in full conscious faith of the being and strengthening your bond to your innermost presence, here and now, in the eternal unity of all that is. So be it.